I have a very special guest today. Mr. Paulo Casaca is the author of The Hidden Invasion of Iraq, politician, and the founder and executive director of South Asia Democratic Forum. He is also the founder of the International Cooperation Association registered in Brussels called ARCHumankind, or Alliance to Renew Cooperation Among Humankind. Mr. Casaca was a member of the European Parliament from 1999 to 2009, President of the delegation of the European Parliament for relations with NATO Parliamentary Assembly from 2004 to 2007, member of the Budgets Committee from 1999 to 2009, and member of the Fisheries Committee from 2004 to 2009. He was also founder, president, or member of several European parliamentary caucuses, namely the Friends of a Free Iran, and founder of the first Amnesty International group in Azores in 1982. He received his degree in economics of agriculture development in 1987. Mr. Casaca has traveled to Camp Ashraf, the Iranian opposition's base in Iraq, before their transfer to Camp Liberty in 2011. Mr. Casaca is a great friend to the Iranian resistance and freedom-loving Iranians around the world. I had the honor and pleasure to talk to Mr. Casaca a few days ago regarding the Iranian residents at Camp Liberty. Hello, Mr. Casaca. Welcome to Radio Irava, and thank you so much for your time and accepting my invitation.
Thank you, Nargis, because I'm always delighted to speak about this issue that it goes very deep in my heart. I have been several times in Ashraf, and unfortunately not in Camp Liberty. Mm-hmm. I never got the authorization to go there, but I did go to Ashraf several times. I have been as well with the refugees that managed to come to Albania, mm-hmm. and I have very, very good friends there. I think that you are very good examples of conduct to the Iranian people, and actually to the international community at large, to the Iraqi people. I saw the way that you were interacting, the people that were living there, the Iranian refugees were interacting with the Iraqi people, and this is absolutely fabulous. It is an example. You are, I'm speaking about, of course, the Iranians that are in Camp Liberty. Mm-hmm. They are heroes. They are heroes of human values. They deserve all the support that humanity-loving people can give them. It's absolutely a disgrace that the international community is not doing what it should be doing to safeguard their life, their rights, their freedom, their physical integrity.
Mr. Casaca, we will get to that specific question, but I think the interference of the Iranian regime in Iraq and the meddling in internal affairs of that country is important to talk about, and it is well known that the Iranian regime does not hide its animosity towards its opposition, the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, PMOI, or MEK if you like, who are, as you said, residing in Camp Liberty right now. But there's been a little to none talking about this role of the Iranian regime in Iraq, the destructive role of the Iranian regime in Iraq. Why do you think is that nobody wants to talk about it?
Yes, very good question, Narge. Thank you very much for putting this question to me. No problem. I just wrote an article in the bulletin of an association that I am directing, ARCHumankind, Alliance to Renew Cooperation Among Humankind. Mm-hmm. And this article is exactly on this question of the appeasement. Why do people in the United States and in Europe tend to appease dictators, aggressive dictators, mm-hmm. Like the Iranian ones? And I think this is a complex phenomena that is also, if you want, also a psychological phenomena. Mm-hmm. We can get some lessons from historians that described how the West dealt with Hitler before the Second World War. Of course, everybody remembers this Munich agreement, but this Munich agreement did not come out of nothing. There was, for years and years, produced in the Western public opinion an appeasement state of mind that conducted to these results. There is, most in particular, one episode, which is the one where the Times of London, that at the time was the most important newspaper in the 30s, something like in 34, where the Times say, well, our question is to support the moderate in the Nazi party against the radicals. And you can imagine who was the moderate. The moderate was Adolf Hitler.
Right.
And this is very telling, because appeasement starts by a will to avoid something that is painful, which is a war, a confrontation. Comes from this concern, which is, well, in itself, it's a healthy concern. I mean, no one that is a normal person, peace-loving person, wants confrontation, wants war.
Right.
But the problem is that when you really want it in a way that becomes psychopathic, when you want it so much that you refuse to see evidence that contradicts this wanting. Then you start into an appeasement process where you refuse to see the obvious things. That's the first phase. And the second phase is that you realize that the aggression continues. Then you start saying, well, but there are certainly reasons for this. And I took the example of the coup against Mossadegh in 1953.
Right.
Of course, that United States were involved in this coup,
right.
As they have been involved in so many other actions in South America, in Asia, so many other places. But what is very interesting there about this 1953 coup is that the CIA actually played a very secondary role. The international force that was still the most important was the United Kingdom. And it was the secret services of the United Kingdom, the main international presence in this coup. And internally, it was exactly the Islamic fanatics, Ruhollah Khomeini already, among others, that played the most decisive role. So they were the ones who made a coup, rather than the CIA that played a very secondary role. And of course the Shah, but the Shah was actually not very powerful in terms of by himself.
He didn't think for himself.
He didn't think much for himself,
No.
exactly. In the whole of the history of interventions of the United States, there are so many, most of them not very happy ones. And there is only one where the material, the secret material, was declassified, and the United States produced a public apology for its action, which was exactly Tehran. This Mossadegh coup, and they apologized to the culprits,
Right.
to the fanatics that are in power in Tehran. This is absolutely absurd, but it shows to the point where appeasement got into their mentality. And the third phase of appeasement is the Stockholm syndrome, when you start to associate yourself with the aggressor. When it becomes so powerful, this idea that you want to avoid conflict, that you just do the role of the aggressor. The Stockholm syndrome is the third, more pathological phase of the appeasement. So this we have also to consider, because in rational terms, nobody really can understand what's going on. I mean, how is it possible that the United States is doing everything against its own interests, to serve fanatic bunch of people that imprisoned the Iranian people, is aggressing its neighbors, and every Friday chants "Death to America."
Right.
It's fantastic, that the United States, among all the other countries, would do that. And of course, this appeasement that, once again, I mean, it's not fair to say that Mr. Obama was the only one or was the main one. Or it's not even fair to say it was the Democrats, because it's not true. Ronald Reagan provided enormous quantities of weapons to the Iranian regime, and most likely what was said about him, that he negotiated with the regime the non-release of the hostages is most likely true. So all of them, well, not to mention, of course, Bush's son, even Bush's father, but Bush's son, when he invaded Iraq, he actually invited the Iranian Revolutionary Guards to take care of it. There is a book, for instance, that I quote in my own book, describing how Mr. Chalabi, that was supposed to be the representative of the West, gets into Iraq, is escorted by 40 Iranian Revolutionary Guards. And so whoever thinks that democracy can come with Iranian Revolutionary Guards, it's absolutely out of this world. It's so incredible. The problem with this appeasement policy in Iran is that it is not rational. Of course, there are some interests, yes, economic interests. Yes, it's true. A lot of the Western countries think that they will make a tremendous good business with the Ayatollahs. And some others even think that this business with the Ayatollahs will make them soft and will make them, forget about aggression, which is, laughable, because we have seen for a very long time, it's pretty much over 30 years, that the mullahs like very much money, they like very much to get business, and never did they become less fanatic or less aggressive towards their own people because of the Western money. It never happened, and it's not happening, and it will not happen in the future.
Right. I guess history is repeating itself again, but as you know, the US, UN, and Iraqi government promised protection to Iranian residents when they moved to Camp Liberty, and that was a condition for them to move from Camp Ashraf. And yet they've endured the brutal attacks, the siege of medical, fuel, water, and food, which unfortunately continues to this day. Now, after 4 years of broken promises, as one of the American senators put it, it's been proven that the intention was actually not relocation to safe nations. My question is, why did UN insisted to move them to Camp Liberty, which is viewed by many as prison-like? Didn't this occur to them to interview these people at Camp Ashraf without moving them to Camp Liberty? Why they did that?
Well, it was, you speak about the UN, but this specific episode is due to a gentleman, Mr. Kubler. Mr. Kubler was he was married with the ambassador of Germany to Iraq. Unfortunately, Germany is perhaps one of the worst examples of mercantilism, that is, of this logic of
appeasement policy.
No, not precisely.
No?
It's different. It's to make money disregarding politics, which is a bit different from appeasement. Appeasement is more philosophical, psychological attitude. To make money out of these situations is more a lack of principles, and that's what it is. And they thought that Iraq would be a very good market for them. And so the price would be to do exactly what Maliki was telling them to do. And so they did. That's basically what happened. I don't think that the United Nations as such were very committed, but Mr. Kobler was. And this is also because, UNAMI is actually paid. We think of the United Nations as something that expresses the international community, but UNAMI is financed by certain countries. For instance, Iran. Iran is one of the, if you want, of the stakeholders or owners of stock of UNAMI. And of course, Germany is also there. And it tends to represent this sort of very narrow interests. And, human life sometimes is not very important, especially if they manage to put it out of the screen, if they manage to censor, and if they manage to depict the victims as being culprits instead of being victims. From this point of view, I would like to say to you that I think that perhaps one of the best footages that exists about the reality of the Iranian power over Iraq was exactly done in Ashraf still by some of the refugees that filmed the events up to their death. And the killing squad apparently was not trained to recover all the photo machines and film machines, and so they left them. And so we know about what happened. We have, a footage, an impressive footage of the killing because of the courage of some of the victims, of the Iranian victims. And this is really something fantastic, and that deserves a lot of praise for the courage of these people.
Mr. Casaca, on Wednesday, the October 7th, there was a hearing at the U.S. Senate about the Camp Liberty residents. Of course, this wasn't the first time, and they were calling for action from the U.S. government, and they were calling the condition of residents as dangerous. Given the state of the Middle East, the rise of ISIS, the military involvement of Russia in Syria, what guarantees do we really have to see a concrete action in terms of protection of Camp Liberty residents or their relocation?
Well, guarantees there are none. It's quite clear. I think that this call from the United States Congress to be very, very important, and I'm very glad it was done. And I hope that the President of the United States will understand the importance of what was said then. I hope that some in the American administration will start to understand that, the power of the United States erodes when the word of the United States is worthless. The more worthless the word of the United States, the less capable the United States will be able to influence the world. So they should really consider with much care their promises, their written promises of protection, and they should act upon it as soon as possible for defending the most important instrument of external policy of the United States.
I'm sure you know this, Mr. Casaca, that the United States on a few occasions had asked the Camp Liberty residents to renounce their affiliation with the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, or PMOI. And this is, a precondition for resettling them to U.S. Why do you think it's important for U.S. to point out, and what is the Europeans' reason for not accepting more Liberty residents?
Well, I think that the key of the issue is really with the United States. The moment that the United States treat this way the residents, then most of the European countries become very suspicious. That's the issue. No, I think it makes no sense. Of course, it's completely absurd that the United States is so happy to entertain the Ayatollahs and all of the fanatics, and do not admit its friends, those who are struggling for freedom. It's absolutely self-destructive. It's a policy with no rationality that is plainly absurd.
It is not a secret that the rate of execution and the oppression in Iran has been risen since Hassan Rouhani took office as the Iranian regime's president some 2 years ago. And it's been, as everybody knows, escalating since the nuclear deal. This deal, in your opinion, has any impact on how the Iranian regime perceives the PMOI or the MEK?
Well, absolutely, yes. I think that the Iranian regime saw the deal as a green light to step up aggression internally by killing more of its own people. And of course, the Iranian refugees are a prime target. And of course, externally to increase its aggression on the region. And when the time will come, they will not stay there either. It's absolutely clear. And the deal has a lot of responsibility for this. No question about that.
Mr. Casaca, now that the failure of the appeasement policy is proven, what has to be done?
We should do our best to take them out of there as soon as possible. And this is exactly what the Congress of the United States says. That's what a lot of good, willing people is saying. And we hope that those who have power in the United States and Europe will listen to.
Mr. Casaca, you have said that the cause of freedom for Iran is an ideal for the world, not only for Iran and the region. Why do you think supporting Iranian resistance for freedom is only to maintain our freedom in this part of the world where we live in the West? Why do you think these two connect to each other?
Well, we live in a global world. The Iranian regime has a global jihadi agenda. It doesn't want to stay. It's very clear. It's written in the constitution, in the Iranian constitution. It's only a matter of reading it. And to defend the freedom of Iranians is to defend the freedom of every human being around the world. Of course, immediately, in immediate terms, because they think in the long term as well, the neighbors are the main victims right now, the neighbors of Iran. But we should have no illusion that they will never stop nowhere before we force them to stop.
Exactly. Mr. Casaca, thank you so much for your time and all your efforts in order to help Iranians achieve their goal, which is freedom of Iran. It was a pleasure talking to you, sir.
It was also a pleasure. Thank you very much, and all the best for Radio Irava and to yourself.
We stand in the wind, in the cold, through the rain. We walk through the storm as it rages away. In the dark of the night, our faith lights the way, while in our hearts all is one. We say we're standing till the end. Till the end, we banish the dark with the gleam.